Hey, Changemaker! Welcome to Learning for Good, the only podcast that teaches nonprofit leaders how to leverage training to drive performance, improve capacity, and fuel their mission impact. Do you ever feel like your nonprofit is growing, but your people just aren't keeping up? Or like you're fixing the same problems over and over? Do you wonder how to build confident, capable staff who know how to lead, not just execute? If we haven't met yet, I'm Heather, and I know how hard it can feel to get people to do what's expected of them. Trust me, I have 3 kids. I've tried telling people what to do and how. I've tried the traditional training approaches, and I realized that just doesn't work. And that's when I started researching what does work. Now, I help mission-driven leaders use learning to drive performance, build capacity, and make change that lasts. And I'm sharing it all on this podcast. So block your calendar, turn off your Teams or Slack chat, and let's dive in. It's Learning for Good. Have you ever wondered what the real cost is of building the wrong thing? You invest time, money, and resources into creating a training solution, and it doesn't always work. How much does that really cost you? What are the impacts of that? That's what I want us to explore today. Let's dive in. It's Learning for Good. We want so badly to support our staff and create experiences that help them do their work better. You want this because your mission is at stake. And I want this for you because I know what an effective tool training can be. But it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes training doesn't work, despite our best efforts. So what's the cost of that? What's the impact when we build the wrong thing? I want us to look at 3 different categories of cost today. The more obvious wasted resources, the hidden costs to staff, and the missed impact. First, let's look at wasted resources. It comes as no surprise that there are direct costs to creating training. When we think about direct costs, let's think about money spent on designing the training, facilitators, platforms, travel, and materials. So, self-paced courses, for example. You're going to be purchasing some sort of e-learning or some sort of authoring tool that you're going to use, some software tool, right? You're going to have the cost of a designer. And if they're in-house, then it's part of their salary. If they're external, then the cost of hiring someone externally. The cost of the learning management system or whatever platform you're using to offer this course to people. There are several costs involved in self-paced courses. Now, live virtual training is another option that you have. And here you're going to be looking again at the cost of the designer, but you're also looking at the cost of the meeting tool. Are you using Zoom or some other platform? Cost of the facilitator, because you might have an internal facilitator or an external facilitator. The cost of printed and shipped materials, potentially, if you're going to send that out. For an in-person training, you have some similar costs here. Again, the cost of the designer who's creating the training, the cost of the meeting space, as opposed to maybe Zoom or whatever you're using virtually, the cost of the facilitator again. But here you're also adding the cost of food, the cost of travel, like flights and hotel, the cost of any printed materials, and potentially the cost of any branded swag or anything that you're giving out at this event as well. So when you start to look at all of these different costs that are incurred when you are creating training, the numbers is quite a range when you think about it. So at the low end, with maybe one designer, an authoring tool like Articulate 360, and a free or low cost learning management system, ChatGPT estimates anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 to create that. On the high end, though, maybe you're doing a multi-day event with external vendors. ChatGPT estimates anywhere from $75,000 to $250,000. Now, that sounds like a lot, but travel alone might be $2,000 per person when you calculate flights and hotels. and then food while they're traveling. So then when you add in catering and hotel meeting space and facilitators and professionally designed and printed materials, $250,000 starts to make sense. So it's not a small expense to create and offer training to your staff or volunteers or whoever your quote unquote customer is, your members, if you're an association. Now, there are also indirect costs. So when you think about indirect costs, let's think about the time that staff are spending in training instead of on mission critical work. So let's say you have 20 people in an in-person training for 2 days. Now, ChatGPT tells me that the average nonprofit employee in the US makes about $81,000. And that seems a little high to me considering the number of small nonprofits that exist, but let's assume it's correct for the purposes of calculating indirect costs today. So 20 people at $81,000. Their salary cost for those 2 days is over $1.5 million. Now, maybe your nonprofit's average salary is closer to like $45,000 and you're thinking, okay, it's not going to be that much. That's still almost $1 million. And that's time they aren't working directly on your mission. Are you having to pay someone else to cover to work extra while they're at training? The costs are real. Now, there are also some hidden costs and just potential missed impact that can happen, right? The hidden costs to staff when your training doesn't work. They can leave feeling frustrated. They can leave feeling confused. They can leave feeling burnt out. They might have declining trust in leadership or whoever is creating the training, right? Learning and development, HR, whatever it is, because they feel like you just don't get them, that you don't understand what they really need. When we offer a solution is it doesn't work, and then you have to offer another solution and another solution, we're adding to their workload. And so that also can lead to that burnout.
Do you wish you could connect with other nonprofit learning and development leaders? I know what it feels like to want someone to bounce ideas off of and to learn from, someone who really understands you and your work. Imagine if you could have a simple way to meet people in the field, ask questions, and share information. That's why I created the Nonprofit Learning and Development Collective, where nonprofit L&D, talent management, and DEI leaders can connect with each other quickly and easily in a virtual space. When you join this community, you will walk away with a new, diverse, and powerful network and a sounding board for your staff development needs. So if you're ready to exchange ideas and collaborate with your peers, come join the Nonprofit L&D Collective.
So there are real hidden costs involved as well. And then I think, especially in the nonprofit sector, it's important to think about missed impact too. So you're spending money on training, and that's a good thing. I am pro spending money on investing in your people. But those funds could have supported programs. They could have supported community impact. They could have supported other things. And so when we spend money on training, we want it to work. Because if it doesn't, we're missing impact. But if it does, wow, the ripple effect of that can be huge. So we want to make sure we don't miss out on that impact. The cost of training can be high. And the cost of creating the wrong thing can be high. Now, I also think that the learning involved in creating the wrong thing, that's also valuable. But that's another episode. Today, I want to focus on the cost of building the wrong thing. So how do we avoid this? How do we maximize our potential to build the right thing and not see these financial and other impacts on our organization? Now, this is a real question. When you're looking to spend money on training, you want to make sure that it works. You don't want to invest a bunch of time, money, and resources and not get it right. And that's one of the reasons I take the approach I do with my nonprofit clients, which I'll share in a moment. And it's also the reason I love hosting the Nonprofit L&D Collective. The collective is a place for nonprofit training pros to come together and ask questions and share ideas. So hopefully we can make sure we're getting the right solutions for the right audiences at the right time. And we specifically added the Catalyst tier to the collective for people who want extra support and extra learning opportunities. We have an upcoming group coaching call in November that will help you answer the question, is this a training problem? Because we have to start at the fundamental question and then decide the best way to address the situation if we're going to be responsible with our nonprofit's resources. Now, if you aren't in the collective yet, apply today, join at the Catalyst tier to get access to this conversation. And if you are already in the collective, upgrade to Catalyst so you don't miss out on this conversation. It's going to be such a valuable time for us to come together and learn and grow. Now, for me, when I'm working with my nonprofit clients, here are a few things I do to ensure we don't build the wrong thing, because I also want to be financially responsible when I'm working with my clients. One, I want to start with a diagnosis, not a design. So when someone comes to me and says, we need a training, I hear you. And also, we're going to do a needs analysis, because training may or may not be the best solution. There may be a solution that costs less that might be more effective. We're going to figure out whether it's truly a training problem. And this analysis, this process is what helps us uncover what's driving the gap, the challenge, the pain point. And once we know that, like I said, we can consider non-training solutions. We can fix processes, we can create clear expectations, we can add coaching, we can provide tools. But we can't offer the right solution if we don't know the right problem. So that's first. We have to start with the diagnosis, not the design. Now, once we know what's involved, what the solution is going to be, let's say it is training, we want to anchor every learning investment to behavior change and organizational goals. So we decide training is going to be the best solution. How do we make sure that training is actually going to result in the change that you need it to? Now, that's based on where your organization is headed, and it's based on the individuals that we're looking to train. So organizational change and individual behavior change. So that's two. We're going to design with those things in mind. Now, another thing that I like to do when I'm working with my clients, because again, we want to make sure we're being financially responsible, I always recommend that we pilot, that we test what we're building before we scale it. We need to have those smaller experiments if we want to save big on cost later. We can test what we're building, see if it's working, adjust before we continue investing. All right. The cost of building the wrong thing, those stakes can be high, but there are ways to mitigate that. There are ways to make sure that we are building the right thing at the right time for the right audience. That's it for today. I'll see you next time on Learning for Good.
Hey friend, was this episode helpful for you? Did you like what you heard? Do you want more content like this? Here are 3 things you can do. Hit subscribe. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast app of choice. Share this episode with a colleague. This means so much to me personally. I read every review, but it also helps me learn what content you like most so I can create more of what you want. All right, turn that Teams or Slack chat back on when you're ready, and I'll see you next time on Learning for Good.